All right, so we got to jump into my dark and twisted, crazy ass mind. We're in the mind of Haize, and so in the first one, California is suing Tesla, the company, on behalf of black employees. This is after some major allegations have come out about like black employees being separated, working in a different part where they call like the black zone, the plantation. It's just to hear that in modern day is really crazy and unexpected to hear of a work environment that's really that toxic in 2022. Like, don't get me wrong. Seeing and hearing that black employers are kind of segregated off isn't, but like calling it the plantation, this happening company wide. The fact that the state of California got involved to the point to where they are suing on behalf of black employees. Listen, this may it's one or two ways that this can go. It's either going to get some major news coverage and people. Well, either way, employers are going to get paid. Once the state starts suing, there's going to be payments made. Now, the way that this can go is that it's either going to go a long, ugly court route, or Tesla is going to make a decision as a company and to say, "Hey, let's go ahead. Let's come up with an agreement outside of going to court without needing to do that, and let's pay these people off and get them their money in restitution." That's the only ways that I really see this going, and it could get really ugly. Now, what this does for the company of Tesla, who's owned by Elon Musk, and like really to this point had really just, yeah, not to say that everything's been looking at all rainbows and everything over there, but it's crazy that a company of this size to get this type of lawsuit levied against them. I don't know if we've seen anything this level in modern day culture in so long. Like, and shout out to the state of California who decided to go ahead and move forward with the lawsuit for the black like the employees. The fact that segregation, this was specifically at the Fremont factory, no African Americans or the absence of many black or African Americans in leadership roles, and the fact that they're saying that this racism has been going unchecked since 2012 is wild, right? Wild. They have complained of swastikas, KKKs, use of the N word. This is really going back and making you be in the mindset of like the series Them. Like you don't see a lot of things this blatant in modern day culture. And wish I could say that it's shocking, right? It's shocking to a degree, shocking to the levels of which it happened, but some of this isn't shocking at all. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that up, talked about that some in this opening topic. Let me know what you guys think about this and Tesla and everything else like that. This is crazy. This is crazy. And we could see one of the biggest companies, not necessarily that it's going to be completely taken down, but to see a state of the California size step in and to cause some major changes in this company is going to be huge. Let's get into the next topic in the Mind of Haize segment. That's Joe Rogan. Now, if you've been living under a rock, if you haven't heard about some artists pulling their music from Spotify, the video of Joe Rogan's repeated use of the N word in different times. Some of these videos date back all the way to 2011. And so, of course, during Black History Month and just in general, this is really stirred up. Now, this all started initially with people having issues with Joe Rogan's misinformation when it comes to COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and it ballooned out to the racism aspect of it. And now we're seeing this thing that we see so often in modern day and with cancel culture is that they're bringing things in from the past and using it. Now, one thing that I will say is that as far as the issue on the misinformation aspect of it, I would have liked to see that separated without the racism, and the racism part being brought up in its own merit, because I think the racism now is kind of used as like this nuclear bomb with topics. If you can throw the word racist out to people amongst anything else going on, it's kind of used like as that trump card. Whereas his misinformation thing, I'm going to separate it just for the nature of this conversation and the nature of this podcast. In the conversation here, the misinformation part, all modern day media is all about misinformation. So I'm going to leave that there, not to excuse it, right? It's bad enough in of itself. And this is why I do like using independent media outlets, kind of like podcasts and everything else, to go, because there's so much misinformation out there and everybody has their own rhetoric and everything that they want to pursue. But the racism aspect of this, when you have somebody, now I look at Joe Rogan as the modern day shock jock to a degree, right? He's not shocking in the way that he just says things to always be controversial, but he doesn't really think a lot of the things that he puts through, and he's not really the put together type of media person. So with that being said, like what's happening here with Joe Rogan, no, I'm going to say this now. No white entertainer should be using the N-word, period. on their platform. You know, you can try to police what people do in their personal lives, but it just shouldn't happen. It's something that could be too radicalized, and at the same time, it's just shows a level of ignorance to the suffering. I don't want to hear the fact of, oh, black people use it. I don't want to hear any of that shit, right? I don't want to hear any of that. There is not a world in which I personally will excuse any white person using the N-word on period. It should not be done. Now, when you hear Joe Rogan talk about it, it does seem like there's a level of ignorance. And by ignorance, I mean the fact of him just not knowing and probably understanding. It seems like he's repeating it, right? He feels like because he's using it in a way, or he's talking about it other times where it's used. But at the end of the day, it doesn't sit well with me. And when we're seeing this modern day, like trying to take down Joe Rogan, Joe Rogan is Spotify's bottom bitch. And by that, I mean, he's the one that makes them the money, right? They gave him the big deal. We see what happens with that. It's going to take an artist, and I've said this before on the Breaks Radio, it's going to take an artist of a huge caliber to either pull down their music or say they're not going to make their next album available for Spotify to really wake up and do something serious. Now, we've seen the fake apology from Joe Rogan. I think it's a bullshit-ass apology. So you guys can have your own opinion on that. But with that being said, I just really think in looking at this, it's really one of those things where I think for it to be noticed, and if we want to see the action that we're going to see, it's going to take an artist of a much higher caliber. No slights to India or Ree or anybody else to really either pull down or hold some music back from Spotify before they really do something in this. You know, people have compared it to the incident that happened January 6th, and now looping them in with protesters and things like this. The issue with that is, or no issue, but the fact with that is that anytime you have somebody who does something that can be radicalized, they're going to get lumped in with other radicals. And so that's what you're seeing happening to Joe Rogan. This thing is ballooned to a much bigger outcry, and it seems like now at this point, it's where it would have been something seemingly if it was just the Neil Young and people pulling their music, where it may have been swept under the rug after a while, where it's now snowballing each week into something and something bigger, and we're going to see where it ultimately ends up with. Let me know what you guys think about the Joe Rogan issue and everything going on there. Let's get into the next one. This one is about Amir Locke. And unfortunately, in 2022, we are still talking about a young black man losing his life in which he shouldn't. If you don't know the Amir Locke story at this point, police issued a no-knock warrant, or executed a no-knock warrant within 10 seconds of not breaking in, but within 10 seconds of executing that and coming into the home, Amir Locke was shot and killed. Now, he did have a legal firearm with him, and I know that the police did identify themselves, but you got to think 10 seconds, right? To go from sleeping on a couch to somebody being in your house in 10 seconds and you have a legal firearm which is meant to protect yourself, it makes sense to grab it at least to see what's going on. Amir Locke was not one of the people who this warrant was supposed to be issued for at all. And so it stirred up the conversation of no-knock warrants and what should happen with no-knock warrants. Now, a lot of states, and in the state that this happened is, they're talking about doing away with no-knock warrants, except in severe cases, or maybe even strengthening and making stronger or tougher, I should say, what needs to happen for a no-knock warrant to even be allowed, right? Don't get me wrong. There are some situations in which a no-knock warrant is going to be needed. And the fact of, like, if you're going into a warehouse, it's clearly, but when you come into somebody's home, things like that, you unfortunately run into situations like this. And unfortunately, once again, we're talking about a young black man losing his life. As far as where I stand on the no-knock warrants thing, I do think that it needs to be tougher on what and how you can get a no-knock warrant. But then also some rules need to be held before you use lethal force, because you are executing a no-knock warrant, because the purpose of a no-knock warrant is to come in quickly and figure out what the hell is going on. Like 10 seconds. Let's just be clear with this. 10 seconds. 10 seconds is not enough time to process anything. 10 seconds, a young man should not lose their life in 10 seconds because they are caught off guard because they didn't expect somebody to be breaking into their house from their point of view, right? 10 seconds. Listen, it's unfortunate, and it does need to be looked at. And I'm glad that some states are now looking at this. And unfortunately, we have to have another martyr in the black community, to get some change that should have already been happening, to get people to take topics seriously that they should have already taken seriously. Somebody has to lose their life for that. I am a man. I am a father of a black man. You feel me? 2 of them. I have to raise 2 young black men in this culture, in this society. And when I'd be being disingenuous if I didn't say that I am terrified for them, not because of what they do, right? Because I trust that I I have raised my children in a way where I feel like I know and I can trust the people that my sons are becoming, the character in which they're becoming. But a lot of times, unfortunately, in this country, it's not just about that. It's about how you look. My son is a 6 foot 16-year-old. And in some people's world, he is terrifying to them. He's terrifying to them. And that's just the reality in which we live. And it's unfortunate. It sucks. It's sad. It's disheartening. It's all of that. And I'm glad that some change is coming of this. And we need to do not let Amir Locke's sacrifice go unnoticed or quietly into the night. Do not allow that to happen. For every black child, every young black man that has to be raised, every young black man that is just out there living their life every day and is looked at as a potential predator or that scares somebody or is frightening to somebody just by the nature of them and their presence and their power as a black man, that's crazy. It's crazy that we can't allow our young black boys to stay boys, because the moment that they mature past a certain point, we have to educate them on how other people are going to be afraid of them just by the nature of who they are. Who they are. Too many young black men have lost their lives for this country. Too many young black men have had to lose their life way too early before they really get a chance to even become the people that they could become. Too many black men have lost their opportunities to grow, change, educate themselves, to evolve as people. It's too much. It's too much. It happens too much and too often in this country, and I, for one, am tired of it. So when you look at the sacrifices of people like Amir Locke, who did not know when he went to sleep that day that he was not going to be able to see his loved ones again. And I don't say this to be dramatic. I say this just to be real. It sucks, and it's sad, and it's disheartening, and it's frustrating, and we're angry, and all that is true. And you have the right to feel that, black man. Black people, we have the right to feel that. Never let them take away your right to be angry about the society and the culture that we live in. Never allow them to take that away. Their fearfulness over us living our lives is something they have to deal with. That is ingrained in their culture, in their inheritance, in their people, that they have set there and made black people the public enemy number one so fucking often that it's now normalized for a black person to be looked at as a threat. This is not normal. This is not right. This is not the way we should have to live. But unfortunately, we do. And until we get ourselves together, we as a culture need to get ourselves together too. I'm not going to let us off the line. We need to get ourselves together so that we can be unified in fighting this type of injustice. Period. We need to unify ourselves, right? We need to radicalize ourselves in whether it's protests, whether it's sit-outs, whatever that is. Because it's too many of us, black men, black women, who have lost their lives for a cause or for a purpose that we should not have to just be able to live as normal humans in a country that we built. Keep that in mind. We built this shit. And I'm not going to apologize for that. If me saying that offends you, fuck you. We built this shit, period. We built this. And now we have to live in this and be threatened just by the nature of who we are. Everybody wants to take from black culture. Everybody wants to be cool. Everybody wants to do the dances. Everybody wants to use the slang. But they don't have to live that. Their embracing of black culture can be shed off and they can go back into the world and still be white, whereas we still have to be looked at as a threat. It's not right. It's not right. Period. It's not right. It's not right. And as parents that have to raise black men, black women in this culture, it's scary. It's scary. And that's where we sit at with that. I apologize. I know I got animated there. I did not know that this was going to trigger me as much as it did. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take a brief break. Let me reset myself. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about something more positive and why we're seeing the modern day black arts movement in many ways and in many forms of media. We'll get into all that right after this.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.